RealTuners Radio.
Are you interested in taking a live, in-person class with the guys from RealTuners? We have 2-day courses in dyno shops across the country. Our next class will be in Mount Airy, North Carolina, February 24th and 25th at TIC Performance for a Holly-specific class. For you Midwest people, we have seats available at our class in Northwest Arkansas, March 10th and 11th at Jerry's Performance and Magazine. Plenty of seats left for this one. It's a good opportunity to make a spring class that still has open seats. We also have seats available at our Dallas-Fort Worth class, March 24th and 25th. April classes, we will have a GM HP Tuners Gen 3 and 4 specific 2-day class, short tuning in Danville, Kentucky on the 7th and 8th of April, and advanced standalone tuning on the 28th and 29th, also at short tuning. May 12th and 13th will be in Detroit, Michigan. May 26th and 27th will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. June 9th and 10th is another Holly-specific class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. Register for all of these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. If you'd like to bring 2 or more people, talk to us about group discounts. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holly, FuelTech, Megasquirt, Fast, and others on a chassis dyno. Includes topics such as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, and power adders, all designed to help you get your project running successfully in a course taught by people who actually do this stuff for a living.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to RealTuners Radio, episode 36. Tonight, we have an awesome show. Probably the 2 most interesting men in all of X275 racing. Lights Out 9 champion John Keesey and diesel guru Ryan Milliken. We also have our normal crew here: John Bewley, Little John's Motorsports, James Short, Shore Tuning, Phil Fowler of Bear Brakes, Scott Evans, Helix Tuning, Cody Bruce from Nano Nitrous, Mark Dahlquist of Throttles Performance, Doug and Andy Cook, Motion Raceworks, Tom Sewell of Fuel Injector Development, and me, Rye Klemp from Bull City Speed. And finally, the engineer keeping this train from derailing, Scott Clark, RealTuners.
Oh, what's shaking, everybody? Back to Wednesday nights. Let's see. What is the date today? February 21st, 2018, episode 36 of RealTuners Radio. We still here. So that's a good thing. Let's see. Kind of hyped up tonight. Hyped up, trying some new stuff on the video stream, and hopefully the video and audio streams are working and you can hear us clear. Got some really cool guests tonight. Kind of an exciting thing for us because we all watched the Ducks race last week going on Thursday night, and it made for kind of a boring show. But at the same time, we got a couple of the guys that were kind of key, interesting players at that event that are going to be on the call on the show here shortly. That being said, I'm just going to turn it over to like Mr. Hilarious, Awesome Video, Bull City Speed, Rye Klemp. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good. I'm in a good mood tonight, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. These guys are awesome. It's gonna be a good show. Yeah, the Ducks race was super interesting. I think that the highlight for me was Stevie Fast, Radio versus the World, taking the championship away from Keith Haney. And he didn't just hand it to Keith Haney once, but he did it twice in qualifier for that big, nasty grudge race. And he sent a message to him then. And then, he made sure in the finals that everybody knew that was not
Stevie
a fluke.
Fans came out.
Did you see the Gap meme that he put up?
I did not see the meme. No, I have to go look at that.
What did it say?
He photoshopped a U-Haul trailer behind his race car to show the gap.
Because you could see it on the feed. I mean, he hung the chutes in his face.
I saw that. The chutes came out a little before that. Yeah.
Dude, it was amazing to watch. That was Stevie,
both those guys are awesome to watch. And them, Keith Berry, any of those guys, even Dwayne Mills. Dwayne Mills is a lot more laid back. He's very different from the rest of those guys in that crowd. But he now on the flip side, Dwayne Mills is like the best chef in the pits. But the rest of them, they're all of them very entertaining stuff to watch. And I'm just like, man, I thank these guys for their hobbies being like something that's so much fun to spectate. God, drag racing rules right now. Sorry, I'm just all happy about the way things are in drag racing. That was some fun stuff to watch. Good racing, a little out there. You know, you talk to Brian Loans. We need to get him back on. He's a friend of the show. He's been on before. But you could tell they were completely burnt out by the end. The two announcers, him and Lee Sebring.
Oh yeah, I'm having to say, I'm just like,
I sent him messages. I'm like, hang in there, man. I know this is the most disorganized thing you've ever seen or whatever, and a little bit ratty, but just some awesome racing. God, and all the final rounds were killer. They were all awesome races. Like that whole last hour and a half of eliminations was you couldn't get away from the computer at all, just watching the live stream. And God bless Mark Walter and those guys, man, broadcasting that live feed, and it was almost completely glitch free the entire time, which is really hard to pull off. I don't know if he's doing satellite internet down there or what, but you can't rely on cellular internet at the Ducks event because it's so popular that it overloads the cell service. If anybody who's been to the event and tried to do remote tuning there knows. After the last 2 days of the event, there's no internet getting in and out of there, maybe voice calls, and that's it. But anywho,
yeah, so they put on a good show down there. One of these
towers just can't keep that many connections.
No, they can't, and it gets all sorts of funny.
Did anybody? I don't know. This sounds really stupid, but fresh off his Super Bowl win, did Fletcher Cox run down there this year for Lights Out 9? I didn't see him.
They didn't have a car ready yet, is what they said.
That would have been awesome to see a twofer out of that guy.
So what else is shaking?
Not much. Looking forward to some tuning classes this weekend.
Amen, brother. There's I guess I'm going to say there's 2 seats left. It's technically full. There'll always be a couple of no-shows. If you got somebody else who was thinking about coming, just get in touch with us, Scott@RealTuners.com, or hit me up on Facebook or whatever. Somebody wants to come grab those last couple of seats, but it's basically a full class this weekend at Tick Performance with Jonathan Atkins and crew, Mount Airy, North Carolina. That's going to be cool. I do have seats for you and your kid, Tom, if you guys want to sit in too. Let me know. But
I certainly will. If he gets the time off, he said he'll be there.
That'd be great. Yeah, but you're welcome to come too. So anyway, actually, yeah, you should come anyways. It's always enlightening when Tom comes to one of the classes. But yeah, anyway, that's this weekend in North Carolina. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. In fact, I'm on an airplane Friday morning early, and getting ready to head out. Arrange the food today. Ready to rock. I love doing the classes. We're trying to do 2 a month. But anyway, so well, you know what? We should introduce our first guy. A little bit of somewhat knowledgeable about that X275 class. A little bit of experience racing at the Lights Out 9 race here. Last weekend.
He's dabbled here and there.
Go ahead, man.
So yeah, it's he qualified number 2 and then out of 50 cars to make the 32 car field, and then pushed all the way and ended up taking the overall win. John Keesey of X275 Lights Out 9 champion.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Keesey. How's it going?
Oh man, we're doing great. Riding on cloud 9.
Have you recovered yet, or are you still running the adrenaline rush?
Man, I got adrenaline. I got sleep deprivation. I got it all going on right now. We ended up winning that race at by the time we got done packing up and leaving the track. We didn't actually hit the highway till about 3:00 that morning. The following morning, I guess it would have been Monday morning, 3:00. And I drove straight through the night, straight through the day, straight through the night, 22 hours. And I got back home.
Where do you live? What city are you from?
We're outside of Philadelphia.
Got it.
So it's with one guy driving, you have to stop for restrooms and little food breaks and fuel like every 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So only because I have my wife and my little boy with me.
That's how I travel too.
Jordan.
No, I'm the same way. I like to stretch every 3.5 hours. That's about on the money. Stop, take a break, just figure it into the travel. I mean, you had to be running on cloud nine though after coming off a win, because that race. So here's just my opinion. I've worked on a whole one X275 car that ever did anything at that event, and to me, it was far and away the most competitive class of any kind of racing I'd ever seen. Whatever John Sears and those guys have done, it's severely the most competitive class racing I'd seen out there. I thought it was actually more competitive than Radio versus the World. Sure.
It's tight. The field is so tight.
Yeah.
And I have a funny story about this later. My super tuner, Justin McChesney, I got to get back to that, but he, we had this guy, he's awesome.
We need to get him on here.
Yeah.
Tell him.
I don't know where he's at.
I'm sure he's
now,
listening. Justin, you're up next, dude. We'll get you on here if you want.
Yeah.
We can even do it tonight if you want.
He's awesome. I'll tell you, you can't find a better guy to have in your pit. He's just quiet. He's calm. He smiles all the time.
Does he solve problems?
He is, I'll circle back to what we were talking about with the tight field, but since middle of last year, I guess our first race we came out was Yellow Bullet, and we just had a lot of new car gremlins we were fighting with. And I'd ask him, I'm like, well, what do you think we're going to go out and do? It's just a common asked question. And he's like, I don't know. I have an idea, but he would never tell me. And then we go out, and I guess he was just trying to feel the car out and learn the car. And then come lights out, we had a pretty stout showing in lights, or No Mercy 8. And when we came out in No Mercy 8, I get so confused.
No Mercy is the fall one, right? I screw them up too. I just call it the spring and fall ducks events.
Whatever the race was that was in September. That race was like, we had a pretty stout showing. I mean, we went 448 pretty consistently. We had 3 or 4 passes where we went 448. And even then, he really, I'd ask him, I was like, well, what do you think we're going to do on this one? And he never really said much and never ever spoke a number. And then we went to Holly Springs, where we had, or not Holly Springs, Memphis race, the rock and radial race. And we were at that race, and we had just pulled it on another turbo, and we went out there. The conditions were phenomenal. It was negative 600 air. Jabo was prepping the track. I mean, it was like one of them type of perfect storm races. And we threw down multiple 430 passes. And even then I'd ask him, we went a 436 with a 3. And I was like, dude, what do you think it's going to run on this one? He's like, I don't know. And he knew, I think he just didn't want to say anything. And then I could tell during this race, he had really dialed it in. And I mean, when I say dialed it in, I mean, this guy, he was calling the number. He'd say, well, I'm going to put a 442 in it, I think. And we're going to see, and I'm like, and this is like an hour or two before we're going to run. And I'm like, okay, well, right. We get up to the lanes, and I'm like, so what do you think? You think, we still got Pro 275 to go in front of us, and I figure we'll be up there for another 45 minutes. I'm like, so what do you think, Justin? You think it'll go for 39? Because I'm thinking the temperature will drop, the air will get better. He's like, nah, I think I'm going to stick with my 442. And then I am thinking, I could probably goat him into saying a 441 if I said, so I think it'll go a 441, thinking he'll say, yeah, maybe. He's like, nah, I'll stick with my 442. Man, we went out there and threw down like 442. I was like, how's that even possible?
Now I really want to meet that guy.
Sharp, man.
Yep. If he's got enough data to work with, that's awesome. Yeah.
When you have somebody like that behind you and you're letting go of the button, the car's going to do what he wants it to do. It's just, you feel confident, and it's tough sometimes letting go of that button before, because
sure.
When you're starting out for the fresh combo, you're pretty up in the air. Like,
what am I going to break on this one?
Yeah. It's like, oh, here we go. Let's see what happens. And it was just, it makes you calm down so much more and relax. And in a situation like we had, you know, with this last race, the No Mercy race, we had such a tight field. Like we qualified with a 442 with a 4. The next person qualified 442 with a 5. The next person qualified 442 with a 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And it was like,
welcome to X275. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And if the guy, I tell people, you know, they're like, oh, who does the best cylinder head job for 2JZ? I'm like, well, you don't really know because nobody runs them in X275. So I mean, just whoever takes it on and works with it, fine. But you don't know how you compare to everybody else till you show up to an event and the top 16 guys are all going to be, you know, somewhere in the third digit, 1 or 2 clicks with each other. I mean, that's as crazy as it gets. And there's luck. There's got to be luck involved too. Did you guys have good luck? Did you break any parts in between rounds, or did you have to thrash at all, or what? How did that go?
Our thrashing was mostly just near the end of the final 2 or 3 rounds, just because it picks up its pace, you know, and we were no sooner getting the hood off to start it cooling everything down. And they were saying final rounds for everybody, get up to the lanes. And we're like, man, we didn't even hook the tranny cooler up to this thing yet. We got to let this thing cool down some. So we were just, you know, then we were pushing and all hands were on deck. You know, my friend Doug Parker, he was there changing the plugs, and Jordan Penwell was underneath there draining the tanks. And I was, you know, Justin was right there pulling the data and making adjustments. And because we pull the plugs after every single pass.
Sure.
You know, this is the only real good barometer to tell what's going on in there.
Yep.
And I mean, we have EGTs and, you know, the O2s, but to really know, you got to really see it. So, you know, we pull the plugs after every pass, and, you know, we'll run through the valves and pop the plate off underneath to check the main, you know, the connecting rod bearings and stuff, just to keep an eye on them. And we have one of those see-through oil filters to look for any debris, you know, just in case if we see any metallic, we'll take the filter out and just check it. And if it's looks like it's, you know, Babbitt or any kind of material off of a bearing, then we'll
that Clearview filtration filter is awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And people, it's funny, people are like, oh, that's a gimmick. I'm like, man, you guys got no idea. That thing is awesome. You know, it's like if you have and they all go through bearings, keep you from connecting rod getting thrown out of the side of the block, man. If you can see it, that's you know, you can stop it before it happens. Throw a fresh set of bearings in there and be done. So,
hey,
yeah, no.
Can we rewind a little bit just for the people who don't know, man? Can you give us just an overview, rundown? What's the setup on your car? Just, you know, top to bottom, front to back on it.
So, my car, we have a forced inductions, the GT55R turbo on the front. It's an 85 millimeter. It's kind of like the comparison to like the Precision 85 X275 turbo. It is durable. It, you know, we sometimes will make a mistake and prime the oil and forget to disconnect the line, and it'll, you know, I have a friend that did it with a competitor. I'll just say a competitor's name brand turbo that is very popular, and he blew the oil seal out of it, and they had to send it back to get it, you know, redone from the company. And
you mean the only turbo you can win those classes races with? Sorry.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Hold on.
And I'll tell you, the thing is, you know, it's like a rock. It just performs. It's beautiful. It just works. And I think it outperforms every other turbo out there, in my honest opinion, because I've bolted on a few other ones on the dyno to try them. And I don't want to talk bad about any other companies, you know, but I can tell you that forced induction turbo is top notch. And, so we run his turbos. We had Share Fabrications do the whole hot side, and he did all billet You know, all the billet stainless steel heavy flanges, the billet mount, the billet collector for the two, you know, pipes, all those expansions are all sliders, and put all the EGT bungs in. He did a beautiful job. It's like a piece of artwork underneath there. We run a Bennett 380 cubic inch. It's not a real big engine, you know, a little 380 cubic inch Bennett racing engine. It's a iron block with cast inline stock valve angle headed trick flow high ports, which consequently, you know, we are the fastest, according to trick flow, we are the fastest high ported headed engine on the planet. And first time I read that, I was like, man, that's a statement.
That's nuts. Yeah.
And then we went a tenth faster than that whenever they wrote it. So like, well, if we weren't before, I know we are now. So yeah, so we had that trick flow high ports Bennett racing engine. We did, and it's just nothing special underneath there. You know, we don't have like billet aluminum anything. It's all cast aluminum intake, cast aluminum elbow, but it works, you know, and it works very efficiently. The transmission, we run a ATF speed, big shaft. We had the big shaft upgrade, all the billet internals. He did the latest, greatest valve body that gives me like phenomenal reaction times, because I'm not always the best on the tree. I'm not bad, but you know, I'm usually good for like an 030, 040 light, and you know, that valve body is lightning fast, so that helps a ton. The converter is also an ATF speed converter, which is phenomenal because, you know, it's a steel welded converter. You know, it's not a lockup converter. It's not a billet bolt together. They have billet bolt togethers. But this thing is like just meat and potatoes. It just works, you know, and sometimes fancy isn't always better, and more expensive isn't always better.
Right.
You know? So
that's a good point to be made out there too. Yeah.
And my car is the proof of the pudding, because, you know, I mean, you could probably, I figured it out. If I took my car and broke it down piece by piece by piece, I could probably build that car for everything that's in it for about 150 grand.
Wow.
Which sounds like a lot of money.
No, it's not. It's about 100 less than what a lot of guys are spending.
You got it.
Yep.
That's the thing. So, you know, it's not junk, but it is just very efficient. You know, I look for places to save, you know, save everything, save weight, save rolling resistance, anything that I could, to, because I knew we were going to be a little underdogged, you know, and that to me, every other little adds up.
Right.
And, you know, we had the Brakeman brakes and the micro blue bearings throughout the whole system. And, you know, anything that we can run in the drive line as titanium or billet aluminum is done. But it's phenomenal. The car, the wiring, we used Troy from Race Wire. So it's got a real nice.
Troy does a good job.
Yeah, really.
Yep.
Beautiful work. I mean, you know, and it's not just aesthetically pleasing. It's just one less thing you got to worry about, you know, gremlins or something fidgeting on and off because there's a loose connection or a wire. Everything is Deutsch connected. It's perfect. You know, it looks beautiful, but it works fantastic.
Now, Troy's wiring is serviceable. You can get to it. I've seen it. The guy, Troy does a good job. We need to get Troy on here. But.
Yeah, he does a phenomenal job. And it was funny because it actually caught me off guard there in Memphis, because I went to start the car and I had it running and something happened in the lane in front of me. So they shut me down, and I was already in first gear in the water box, and I was ready to do my burnout. And then they said, fire him back up, and I couldn't get the damn car to start. Well, I forgot Troy put a neutral safety switch in the thing.
He actually wired it up. Nice.
Yeah. You know, it's
Thank God.
You know.
Yeah, right.
The little things. Yeah, the little things you don't don't think about, but it's just really nicely done. And then, we use a Haltech. I got a little sponsorship from Haltech there a couple of years ago, and they have a phenomenal unit. I got the Haltech 2500T, which is the traction control box. It has a laser height sensor for wheelie control and also to see how everything's worked. And then it's got tire temperature sensors, so it displays up on the dash in case if I overheat the tires during the John Force burnout. I get a little overzealous sometimes. I can see it, and then just kind of give it an extra 5 or 10 seconds to cool down so that I get my tire temperature where I want it. Little things like that, all the EGTs, the system is phenomenal. The Haltech, it'll even set diagnostic trouble codes if there's a problem.
Sure,
and we can chase after them later. It's a really nice system.
I like hearing that you're happy with it too. That's pretty cool. As far as the ECUs go, they're all tools, and it's like, all right, these guys, I always say it's like the guys arguing the snap-on torque wrench versus the Matco torque wrench. Which one's going to make a faster car? It doesn't work that way, but it's good to hear that you're happy with what they're providing you, and you're getting the down to detail, data that you need from that system. So that's good to hear, man. Good job, Haltech guys. A+.
Yeah, with the Haltech guys too, is what was really nice is, if I ever have an issue, like when we first put it in, just mostly just navigating the software and trying to find my way around, their guys, the customer service department area, every one of them knows their way around those things like the back of their hand, and they're phenomenal to work with. And they'll go online, help you. They have an online deal where they'll actually link to your computer like a
Yep.
I can't remember.
Team Viewer.
You know what I mean? Team Viewer.
Yep.
Yes.
We all use it. I was on it for 3 hours today.
Real nice.
Yep.
Oh. So
cool.
But yeah.
Man.
We actually started out with this car back in Ultra Street days. It was an Ultra Street car back in the day, and whenever this Ultra Street first developed, we were talking, a bunch of us online, and John Sears was like, what do you guys think about starting this class? And it seemed like a real fun ordeal, because at the time I was running Outlaw Drag Radio with my old Camaro, supercharged big block Camaro,
right?
And I thought, this could be fun. So we got in it, and the car kind of went through transformation. We went to a Holly Springs and ended up being the first car in the 4s, and got punished pretty good for it. And the rule makers got a tough job. They got to do what they got to do to keep parity in the class. And the turbo that I was given it was outside the realm. So they banned that turbo, but I got a little taste of going pretty fast. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to slow down. I want to go faster. So in 2014, I pulled myself out of that class and started prepping for X275. And then, we ran into some pretty rough roads. I mean, I had a local engine builder doing my motors, and he was just over his head. The power levels that I was trying to do with the engine, with the stock valve angle engine, because I was trying to get the weight brakes. I went through 3 engines with him, and they were just, they'd make it 1 pass, sometimes 2 or 3 passes.
Not happy.
And they just all, no. And we lost about $40,000 or so in motors over a year and a half with him. And the downtime and just everything, it was so close to quitting. And I just, it was real close to quitting. Yeah.
So frustration point. But it seems like all you guys that have done well in X275 or any of those competitive classes, any of those events, have all been like on the edge, close to quitting or shooting somebody.
Yeah. Or running somebody over with your car.
Yeah.
No, but my wife, God bless her. She is my wife, Deneen. She's like a rock for me. She kept saying, John, you're going to regret it your whole life if you just quit. She said, you're always going to wonder if you could have done it. She said, just ride it out. We'll park the car if we have to. We'll save. We'll put money away. We'll make it happen.
But remember that you're going to have to spend on me the same amount you spent on the car.
Yeah.
No, teasing.
Yeah, no, she gets taken care of pretty good.
Good.
But I'll tell you, that was something for me, and I'll never forget that from her. And I'm glad that we did, because I mean, this race was by far the biggest race I've ever won in my life. How can you?
It's huge. Yeah, it's absolutely huge. That to me would be, I mean, actually cooler than winning a national level NHRA event, I think. Honestly,
it was phenomenal.
Because this is kind of the common racers kind of thing. I know it's expensive and it's medium to high budget, but I mean, it's not like Formula One or NASCAR budget by any stretch of the imagination. It's a small fraction of that. So it's kind of like the working man's, triumphant kind of win. But we're proud of you, man.
It's relatable. You look at those cars and that looks like an obtainable vehicle. Like, obviously, when you
every one of us has realistic dreams of winning a class like that, because we know we could probably, if we mortgage the house, we could probably go be competitive for a year or two. When you throw out like, 150 grand is the budget, and that kind of makes me feel like I got punched in the stomach here and that, but. When you're sitting in the stands looking at this car, you'll blow that in 3 years real quick anyway, without noticing, without even paying attention. Right? That's the honest truth. Yeah. That's actually a really low number. Sure. Yeah,
but when you're sitting as a fan, sitting on the sidelines looking at these cars, X275, this is more relatable to me than anything that NHRA is going to put out there.
Oh yeah. It seems like cars that you'd almost see in the parking lot, almost, but very close. And I think that's part of the appeal
on the East Coast. On the East Coast, especially in the Southeast, there's an X275 race probably, every weekend or so somewhere.
Yeah, there is a lot of races. And that's also appealing part. There's the competition is super intense at these big races, and the guys that show up are like some of the baddest guys in the country.
No, they're some of the most focused people on project management and planning and just getting it done at all costs. And they may, the personalities of the one thing these guys all have in common is do not get between them and their goal. And they've set their eyes on the prize. And I mean, oh God, and the ones that don't get it, the guys that come in second and any place beyond that, you could just breaks their heart, and it's just a crushing defeat for them, and a huge, huge victory for the one guy. I mean, honestly, it's like King Arthur kind of stuff, modern day. Just really, really cool. And I tell people you gotta go spectate at one of Duck's events at least once in your life. Right now, do it while they're live.
Well, I'll tell you, that race over the weekend, when we were done, it really sunk in just how close that finish was. We actually won that race by 0.0089, 89 10,000ths of a second. And I try to fathom what that is. I can't even fathom that. I tried to stop a stopwatch,
a fraction of a blink of an eye.
It was, it was like
at that speed, it's about an inch and a half.
Right, at those speeds, it's about 2 inches, inch and a half at the stripe, right?
It was super close. I can tell you that. A little closer than I wanted it to be, but we went into that race. We weren't the fastest. We just stayed consistent and with Justin and John Kalivas back there, and everything working like a champ. The pressurized solutions guys, they set up the rear end and had it all dialed in, and they actually built the rear for that car. They did a phenomenal job. It seemed to go down a slick track. It went down a tight track. It didn't seem to matter what we threw at it. It just was A to B, A to B, A to B. And with Justin being as sharp as he is, he was able to dial that thing in to pretty much run any number he really wanted it to run, as long as the the loose nut behind the wheel, let go of the button at the right time, we were going to do pretty good.
You guys got drive shaft speed sensor on that, I'll presume? And then do you have a front wheel speed or GPS speed, or can you divulge any other info there?
We don't run any GPS stuff, just the drive speed shaft. That's it.
Got it. Okay.
Drive shaft speed.
Are you doing power management by drive shaft speed at all, or is he just winging it open loop?
We do it by drive shaft.
Nice. Good.
So if it sees a spike in it, it can make a correction. The Haul Tech's actually very fast that way. At like 3,000 RPM, if it sees a slip in the tire, it can actually recognize the problem, make a correction, knock timing out. However we have it set up.
Yep.
Usually it's knock timing out. Before, at 3,000 RPM, before one cylinder fires to the next cylinder.
Right.
It can recognize it, make a correction, and apply it before two cylinders can fire consecutively. That to me is crazy fast too. I don't know how it does all that.
Nice.
God bless.
Yeah, modern processor technology, microprocessors, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
James Short needs to get us a hookup with the Haltech guys and get him on here. Eric Gash or somebody. We need to get him on the, let him talk a little bit with us.
Oh,
yeah, I can do that.
Guy.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Man, that's great to hear.
I'm trying to get Eric to come down to our class that we have here in a couple months. So
he needs to. I would love to have him come down there. Yep, definitely. Let him peddle the goods, man. But that's good to see. I mean, obviously that system works because take a look at it. You know, if it can win one of these events, then it's for real. It ain't slowing him down. That's for sure.
No, you got that right. I'm running that same T-box on my personal car, and you know, obviously I'm nowhere near the caliber car, but it works really good.
That's awesome. Wow, very cool.
Yeah, well, back to what I was saying before, we had a lot of issues, with our local engine builder, and I was real close to quitting. And then, my wife kind of talked me out of it, and I made a phone call to John Kalibas. That had to have been the best phone call I made. Team KBX, between the tuning, the engine, the, track support, helping make sure that these guys are they're like surgeons, man. They're out there, they're checking the plugs, they check the track, they make sure that I'm in the right spot, like to the inch of right where it has the best rubber laid down, where I'll get the best traction. And man, that kind of stuff, it seems so little, but it all adds up. Great guys to have on your side for sure.
Very interesting. Can you elaborate at all on the type of engine failures? Is it common, or was it just a random thing?
Honestly, I think the engine builder was just in over his head.
Okay, fair enough.
It was my local guy, not Bennett. Bennett did
What was going wrong? What kind of problems were you having? Our crowd tends to be technical. We got a lot of engine builders on here, so feel free to.
Okay. Well, he never put spring locators underneath of the valve springs on an aluminum head. So the springs were digging into the aluminum head. He bored each cylinder slightly different, even though the pistons were all the same size. He had, like O-ring the O-rings in the block, never put a receiver groove into the head.
This sounds like these were all self-inflicted.
Yeah. These were things that I think he wasn't careful. Maybe, he doubled the amount of shims underneath of the rocker arms to compensate for the locators that weren't on the cylinder head underneath the valve springs. There was a lot of kind of things that shouldn't happen. And I don't know why they happened. He added, the first engine failed. He had an idea that he could add extra support to the cylinder heads by drilling extra bolt holes, in between the Ford, it's a small block Ford. So kind of like how Chevy has. But unfortunately, he drilled them through the coolant passage and tried to weld it. Well, that's an eggshell, you know, and that coolant passage, it doesn't have enough material there to really support it. So all it did was gave it a weak spot because it still tried to flex. And when it tried to flex, it just produced a crack. And when it cracked, it ended up developing basically a grenade because it cracked and then it burned out the epoxy, and then it filled that void with alcohol, and then it ignited and it turned into a grenade where it literally split the head in half. That was on the first one.
This sounds like somebody who shouldn't be an engine builder to begin with.
I'm in physical pain listening to this.
Yeah. I hate to hear stories like that. You know, I like to hear failure stories if it's a component or something, because that gives us all something to work on to make the engine programs better. But when they're self-inflicted, boy, that really affects all of us engine builders, and that's tough to take.
Don't name this guy out loud on here, but please, if he's listening, if you know who you are, please get some extra help with learning how to build engines a little bit smoother. Something a little more knowledge would be great. I think you're on the right track with trying to build, just maybe a little more knowledge.
And I'll tell you, it costs a lot of money. Cost me a lot of money. I still have pictures. Actually, I still have the one cylinder head sitting out there in the garage. On my Facebook, I have pictures of that cylinder head where it actually split the head straight down into, it just basically annihilated it. I just keep it as a reminder. And ever since I went to Bennett, all those problems have been resolved. The engine is like a rock. It's just been phenomenal. And it runs like a sewing machine. The thing is just efficient, on point. We're actually kind of amazed at not how well the engine runs, but how well the car can perform.
People underestimate the value of consistent performance and longevity on a race motor like that. Just saying.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, there are guys that are rebuilding in the pits between rounds. You know, we worked on a Radio versus the World car where we were pulled the rods 3 separate times in one night. But,
yeah, that's a long night.
Yeah.
John likes drinking moonshine too much to be working that hard.
Well, you got that right.
Speaking of which,
you guys know me pretty well.
Come on, man. How many people?
I'll be honest with you, man. This racing to me is like going camping. You know, it's just that instead of sitting around the fire talking with your buddies, looking at birds and trees, we're looking at race cars and burnouts. You know,
and data,
and you know, just hanging out. But it's the same thing, you know, the lights go down, we're out there cooking and, you know, sitting out there drinking beer and having fun and watching the rest of the cars that are left over race. It's like nothing else.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. And when things are going right, it's actually a good time, like it was for you guys here, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's so awesome.
It was hectic. It was a lot of work. And the competition was stiff, but you know, like some of the other racers said earlier in the week, and I agree with them, you know, it's that race is the best of the best. And that's the one you want to go to. That's the one that is if you're going to win one, you want it to be where everybody that's on the field is the best of the best of the best. And then when you go back, you can hang your hat high and say, wow, how did that happen? You know, it's like,
no, that's so true, man. I mean, just as a tuner, it's a personal goal of mine to work on a car that wins one of Duck's X275 class races. Have been close, have worked on a #1 qualifier, but we couldn't go rounds because getting the car consistent is another thing. Getting the leave consistent. And I mean, you know, honestly, we need to talk to your tuners. We need to talk to Clevis and Justin because, you know, I want to know, they're doing some work to get that car to leave consistently when the track is moving all over the place, right? And the weather conditions were completely screwed up the week before. Like, we had friends getting there on Tuesday or Monday, and they're like, dude, there's 2 inches of water been standing on the track for like 5 days, it's going to have moisture. So track prep guy, I don't care if it's the hand of God that's spraying that track prep. It's going to be an issue. And so testing was just, impossible for a ton of people. And, and Eric Yost was on here saying that, oh man, we've got the tune. I mean, they had tunes for when the track started working, but it was just way out in left field to try and make a decent pass during testing. So it's interesting to see that you guys were able to go rounds and the track was moving even during eliminations.
Yes, you're exactly right. It was definitely a tuner's race, I think. I mean, at the end, you had to be on point, but to make it to the end, you had to be able to adjust. And the KBX guys in my opinion, I don't think there's anybody better out there. I mean, these guys, they read the track. They were feeling it. They were looking at it. They were walking up and down it. They were checking my data. They were checking my car. They even gave me a couple pep talks before I'd run, and it was just what I needed to hear. It was like I felt like I was ready, and then they'd come over and they'd say, "Okay, John," and they'd give me a little pep talk, and I'd be like, "You know what? You're absolutely right," and I feel 10 times better.
Outstanding.
So,
well, good job, Team KBX. Good, congrats to the Haltech guys. Everybody else involved with that program, man. John, you did a nice job. It was interesting and fun to watch. Thank you for having a hobby that is so entertaining for the rest of us. Damn. I'd like to think I represent the rest of the 100,000 plus people that were watching or involved with or spectating or gambling on or just having a good time, enjoying the hell out of that, watching the live stream.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. I mean, I remember going into the lanes and I'd see all the bettors, giving the left lane, the right lane. And it was like, they're all betting on me. That's a switch.
Amen. Yep.
It was pretty fun, man.
If any of our listeners were some of that crowd that was crowding up the start line, please learn to stand back. We like watching racing more than we like watching a crowd stopping the racing.
Yeah. If there's anybody out there that knows what happened to my X275, Duck has those little X275s that he gives to the girls that walk around with. And then at the end of the race, you get the sign that says X275 champion, Ultra Street champion, whatever the class you were in. Somebody stole my X275 champion before I got up there.
What?
Ended up walking off with it, Duck said.
Duck needs to replace it.
Yeah, either that or somebody out there knows who got it. Give them a good swift kick in the nuts and get it back for me. That's great.
Get that to its rightful owner.
Yeah.
I'd
like to hang it up on the wall.
Any listeners out there got questions for Mr. John Keesey this evening before we move on to our next guest? Anyone?
Yeah, I saw one. Somebody wanted to know when you're actually going to decide to go fast and swap an LS into that car.
Ouch. It is. This thing is. I know the LSs can run strong too. I think if Bennett built that LS motor and threw it in there, we'd probably be in the same spot that we're in right now. But
oh, for sure, man. I'm just giving you a hard time. Like, I love the guys that get wrapped around the axle about it. I mean, but when you really break it down to everybody that is all anti-LS and they're bleed forward blue, can you tell us how much of the motor under the hood, besides the general architecture?
Oh my God! You can tell a Ryzen LS nut swinger. He wants to. How much is actual Ford parts?
Yeah, that's what I was right on.
Well, dimensionally, it's all Ford.
I heard somebody called the small block Ford the Gen 1
I'll be
LS
honest
the other
with
day.
you.
I laughed about it.
So I've always called it.
Yeah.
I do know that. I do know that.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I think, unlike most of the guys, I think you can actually order my cylinder heads through AutoZone. You can buy
take that.
Trick Flow high
Touche.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Block Ford, Trick Flow high ports, right from AutoZone and O'Reilly's. They keep them on they're on their website.
Hey, John, just a quick question.
Sponsorship from Trick Flow someday, but what's that, bud?
Go ahead, Tom.
When you talked a little bit about tuning for the track and whatnot, just curious, is it mostly power management type tuning, or do you actually get into chassis type changes at the track like we would, like I say, a Pro Stock car? We'd be swinging bars or doing something crazy under the car. Do you get into that type of change as well, or is it more just a tuning power management? The whole thing. Very cool.
Everything. Yep. If it's needed, we'll move bars. If we need to, we do we have double adjustable Menser canisters on the back, double adjustable Mensers on the front, ride height. We'll mess with the actual, travel in the front end. We'll do anything that we need, that we feel that we need to do to get A to B down that track. We'll make those adjustments.
Hats off. That's really cool.
And so is the KBX guys driving that? Is that John Kalivas making those calls, or who's the lead guy on your intergroup?
Generally the KBX guys are there, and we have the pressurized solution guys there that are part of the KBX team, and they'll videotape the car, go back, check it, look at it, read it. If it's working, we leave it alone. If there's an adjustment that needs to be made, they'll make the call, and I'll give them my input, let them know exactly what it feels like, what it was doing on the track, and then we make adjustments accordingly. And usually the next hit down, we're dead on.
What are you guys using as far as like weather tools and track stickiness tools? Are you guys using anything to check that stuff, or are you just kind of checking
track and tire temp, or what do you do there?
Well, Justin, he has a real good eye and John, they have a real good eye for the condition of the track. I've never seen them use one of those torque, meters, but I know that.
So they're just walking out and putting their foot on it?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they walk out, they look at it real tight, see how much rubber's on it. They may reach down the field, see how thick the rubber is, see what, especially in a situation like we had over the weekend where it was a lot of rain, the rubber tends to peel up. I think he ended up scraping the whole track at a couple points there. And, it was like starting over fresh. But I think that's Wade doing his part to putting in the extra hours to make sure the track was going to be on point by the end of the weekend, to make sure that the guys who were in the final couple rounds made clean passes and were able to put numbers down that they wanted to put down. But before that, it was really letting the guys go out there and seeing what we had to deal with. So,
and obviously there's probably some little corrections in the tune for air temperature and stuff like that. Are you guys doing tune changes because of humidity and because of pressure changes and things like that as well?
Yep.
Are you guys using a little weather station for that?
Yeah, I have one in the back of the trailer. So I pull, we can look on air density online, which is a really
That's
nice
the one
website.
I use. I live by air density online. Yep, I like that even more than I like carrying a weather station around because they use way better equipment. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I have an app that does all that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're phenomenal. And then, we'll use them. And then usually when I'm documenting all my data, like after each pass, I'll pull out my weather station and I'll just get the exact figures for that time after I'm done the run and then document everything in. But when Justin's using getting ready for a run, he usually looks on air density online. And water
grains. Are you logging things and looking back at them?
What's that?
Like, are you using like a physical logbook, or using Excel spreadsheet, or how are you logging things? And then are you looking back at them? Like you go, oh yeah, we had this happen at, it was this kind of temperature. It was exactly these conditions weather-wise. So let's start with this. I mean, do you do any of that?
Yeah. What kind of data do you keep track of pass to pass and event to event?
Well, with the Haltech, when you go to save your file to the data viewer, it gives you a big long bar. You can type all that information in. So we type in all of our specs from the run, all of our, 60,
results,
330, all our results from the run. And then right after that, I put the conditions, whether it's day, night, and then I'll document all of our, I'll document everything. I write everything in. I probably put too much stuff in, but I figured just that way there we know exactly what we were dealing with and exactly how we had the car set up. And that way there, if that ever happens again, he can just basically go through and say, okay, I think the track will
We've
hold
been
this
here
60
before.
foot. I think it'll.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he'll find it, and then he'll see how the conditions look. And if they're remotely close, then we have some good data to work off of. So,
not a lot of people asking questions, but a whole lot of people telling you congratulations on our various chat windows. Gonna have to agree with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Jeb Simmons has really been peeing his pants to say hi to you and tell him that he said congratulations.
Yeah, our buddy Jeb, and he's actually it's funny. Somebody screenshotted your win at the event, and Jeb Simmons his text is on there cheering you on that picture that's got the timing, the boards with the win light lit up after your last round. I thought it was pretty funny. Jeb's a big Ford guy. He's a buddy of ours from St. Louis.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
then there was another.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm so appreciative of everybody that says thank you to me. I feel almost obligated. I got to go back and thank each one of them because it's they're taking time out of their day to congratulate me, and it's huge for me. I mean, obviously this kind of stuff doesn't happen every day. I don't even know if it'll ever happen again, but I'm going to enjoy every
It's
moment
happened
of it
once. That's just something that'll long outlive all of us. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So awesome. Cool. Let's see.
We do have one listener that had to point out that even though your heads may come from AutoZone, he had to point out that you probably don't still have the stock Ford block, do you?
I don't have a stock block now. I do have an iron block.
There you go.
That matters.
Do you get a weight break for running the iron block? Is that one of the things that gives you a weight break in the class? And what do you have to weigh?
No. Actually, I have to weigh 3,075 pounds. 3,075, which seems kind of heavy for a stock inline cast head with cast intake and iron block, but it must be pretty close because
it's probably because Bennett's been building those engines for a long time, and that's somewhat of a mainstream engine combo. So that's the one that gets the weight focus. It's the guys that are running weird combos outside that are going 4 mile an hour faster that are going to get the weight next year.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yep. You're probably right.
But again, that's a tough way to do it. That's not the easy way. It's the hard way.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing for John, Sears that he has to deal with. And I don't envy him for any of that. So I try and stay as even keeled and quiet about the rules as possible and just let that man do his thing. And
right. No, cool.
But,
all right. Well, if no one else has any other questions for John, we'll let him get some rest. Go ahead, Mark.
When are they going to start making Hot Wheels versions of your car?
Hopefully soon.
I've been trying to get somebody to build me a little model, but I don't know who does that stuff. And I actually paid one guy, I won't mention his name. He took $150 from me to build a model. I said, all right, cool. And I give him the $150, PayPal'd it over to him. And this has been going on for probably 2 years now.
Never got your model.
I message him every now and then and say, how's that model coming? Oh man, I'm almost done, or I'm getting started. And he didn't never build me that model. I think he took that money and went out to dinner.
Right.
But I bet you we could get Charlie. I bet you we could get Charlie Bennett to build you one. He does a lot of the RC, not the RC, but the
slot car,
the electric, slot car stuff. I bet you if we could find
that's what this guy was supposed to build me.
Yeah, I bet you we could. Well, I'll talk to Charlie, see if I can get Charlie to build you one. We'll need some good pictures of the paint job on the car so we can replicate it just like it is.
I got a hella good slideshow playing right now. Yep.
We do have a listener from the West Coast.
I really like that.
And
go ahead, Dalton.
We do have a listener. We do have a listener from the West Coast, and he was actually wondering what the water grains at Lights Out 9 were and how you were able to see out the windows with as bad as they were fogging up. He said where he lives, he's never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly during that pass. Most of the water grains were like around 100, 120. The humidity was like it was right on the borderline of raining, and the fog had rolled in, and the temperature was probably around 76, 77 degrees, I guess. So it was like right on that edge of the dew point was just ready to break open and start raining, but it just wouldn't. And they actually shut the race down there that one night because this fog had rolled in. You couldn't see the end of the track. So it was like, yeah, it was getting bad. We put blankets and stuff over the windshield to try and help, but as soon as you got in the car, within like 30 seconds, you couldn't see again.
Yeah, it was crazy. That I was talking about that with the guys, and then the fog rolled in 5 minutes after that. But I think the big thing isn't the quantity of the water grains; it's how rapidly they're changing on you in that part of the country, which drives me nuts. That might want a 3-degree ignition timing change for a given power level, on a combo like his.
Well, it definitely makes the tune a lot safer, because when you look at the plugs, they look like they're still brand new. On alcohol, you're just chewing water, and I mean, you could throw more timing at it, I guess, but then you take a chance. And
well, it affects the burn rate. Yeah,
car.
I mean, it affects the burn rate, and that's what it's doing. So it's kind of like water injection. And it is like Tom was saying here offline. It said that's death by water in a naturally aspirated world. But yeah, it happens. I mean, that's part of winning that race and having your stuff together is dealing with all those different things that nature throws at you. I mean, everybody's having to run down the same track, so it's everybody's having to deal with the same thing. That's what makes it more interesting. And it's definitely a tuner's race. That's why I always want to know about who was helping you behind the scenes. And it's kind of good to hear you talk about your guys and explain what's going on and what it takes to win an event like that. So,
well, it's definitely a team effort. I mean, between me doing my part and my crew guys doing their part and the KBX guys doing their part and pressurized solutions guys doing their part, everybody that had a hand in the car, I tried to give them a big thank you on my Full Force Racing page that I have. And, because we wouldn't be there without them. Long story short, we couldn't make it there without them. So
it takes a team. That's for damn sure. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, hey man, it's been an hour. We've taken too much of your time already. I appreciate you being on the show. It's
hey, I appreciate.
We'll send you the links when we're done here. We'll send you the links for the podcast so you can share them with your friends and whatnot. Everybody, go check out John Keesey. What do you have a Facebook page or a website for the race program?
Yeah, it's Full Force Racing, and I usually throw a link or two onto my Facebook page, but yeah, it's under Full Force Racing.
Gotcha, on Facebook.
Yes.
Yep. So go check out Full Force Racing. Give them a like and a share for sure. Check them out. Give them a thumbs up. Congratulate them for winning one of the toughest race and one of the most competitive modern day drag racing classes that are out there. So once again, John Keesey, thanks again, dude. We appreciate you being on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, brother.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Man, that was cool. I liked hearing from him. You guys got thoughts on that?
Definitely. Dude, X275 is such an awesome class.
It is.
I don't know.
It's ridiculous.
To me, it's literally one step below Radio versus the World.
We're going to have to try and get John Sears on here. For me personally, it's actually one step above for competition, for competitiveness. It's in craziness and money spent. It's a step below, but it's a very calculating, very. I mean, there's of the 50 guys that show up, it's any of a group of 20 of them. It's any one of those guys' race,
And they're all within a tenth of each other.
Oh yeah.
I know it's probably top secret stuff, but I'm just sitting here thinking all I want to see is a data log out of that car.
I know, right? Same here.
Good luck.
Good luck with that. Yeah. We'll see if we get Justin on here or John Kalivas, but good luck. Yeah. Accelerometer data. There's a lot to know there, but like they said, chassis tuning, everything else, there's just a ton to it. I mean, and it takes a group of people.
And John's a perfect example of guys. I've got people that want to switch combinations up year over year, and then I've got other guys. And you look at John. John has been working with that same car and that same chassis for as long as I've known him, and our relationship goes back to 2013 when I was helping him when he was running in Ultra Street.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for bringing him on tonight, John. Mr. Bewley has known this guy for a long time. When he worked way back when you worked at TEA, right?
No, it doesn't go back that far, but it goes back. John was running Ultra Street, and we started working together on some stuff, and helped move his Ultra program along when he was running Ultra back in 13 and 14. So I was lucky enough to be a part of him going fours, the first one to the fours in Ultra, which was pretty cool. Yeah. But he's had that same car and just updated that chassis. I mean, that car doesn't wiggle a millimeter without John knowing what that car is going to do. So he's had that same old that beautiful paint job car for a long time, and he just sticks with it and upgraded it and moved up classes with it. And I don't know if I could ever stand to see him behind the wheel of something else at this point, because everybody knows the old blue and the yellow and blue car, whose car that is when they see it on the track.
It's got a good paint job. I like it. It's easy to remember.
Got a beautiful paint job on it. It's one of the only notchbacks with a GT ground effects package on it that I like.
Right. Lovely. Well, who's next? We got someone else waiting in the wings here. He's been on mute and probably fell asleep.
Lord.
Actually, I know what he's doing. He's on the dyno. He was sending me pictures. This guy was on the chassis dyno, tuning some big, nasty bro dozer here a little bit ago. Here come the diesel jokes.
John's?
Yeah. No,
it wasn't me.
No,
I wasn't tuning it.
Rye, you should introduce this next guy. Tell people who we got up next.
I think John should do this one.
Oh, man, I should do this.
Fold out your toe mirrors, everybody.
Yeah, everybody get ready. We're going to step away from the gas world a little bit. And tonight, Lights Out 9 was I can't even think of the words at the current point in time. There were some things going on there just with the race winners, but it was also the first time a diesel-powered vehicle won a round of competition in X275. So our next guest is the one, the only, the infamous Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance down in Florida.
I need to get an applause sound effect going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear us, Ryan?
Clap, clap, clap,
I'm
clap,
here.
clap.
I can hear you guys.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Welcome, dude. So you're the next most talked about guy in X275, which I think is our group's favorite class, really.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing
it's
right now.
It's a good thing, man. It's cool.
Last few minutes here.
I'm going to kick on your slideshow here so people can see just what it is that you do. Okay. So, I got pictures of, I got a whole bunch of neat pictures from all the magazine articles your car's been in and action shots from, the number of races this last 2 years. You've kept us wildly entertained with this nice bright green shoebox Nova that's packing billet Cummins Diesel under the hood. And what was your best ET in mile per hour at this last weekend's Lights Out race or No Mercy? Lights Out.
Technically, it was Daniel Pierce's best.
He was driving,
at
right?
A wedding Saturday. Yep. So my crew guy, the guy that brings me staging beams and that cool stuff, we got him licensed up over the fall and put him in the car. So I believe it was his first pass in the fours ever this weekend. He's been a racer longer than I have, but we went 455 at 163 in qualifying, which put us we were number 6 qualifier in the first round, but as the track came around and more people got their tune-ups and stuff figured out, we ended up 18th qualifier.
I mean, that's still
pretty. That's
amazing,
badass, dude.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. I mean, first off, what do you got away in your class with your configuration?
So we're actually the heaviest combo, I think,
in class.
I believe so. We have the heaviest base weight, at least. So we're 3,200 base weight
with one of the lightest allowable weights. Correct, and that if you run a straight 6, you can get away with a really light weight, but the problem is you can't.
Yeah, until John put a straight 6 Cummins in there. So the regular straight 6 gets to weigh next to nothing. If you show up with a Cummins, you got to weigh 3,200 pounds base weight.
Oh, really?
Then we have a lockup converter, billet block, billet head. So there's 150 in penalties. So total weight's 3,350. And it sounds like a lot, but it really doesn't even matter to us. We were going over the scales this weekend at 3,600.
Yeah.
So,
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
you can throw some weight at me, I guess.
Cracking into the fours at 3,600 pounds. And I mean, can you tell us what the weight bias is front to rear?
With him in it, believe it or not, it's actually lighter on the nose because the way the driver's seat sits in that little car. So with him in it, he's about 60 pounds heavier than me. So it's I think he said 52.8 on the nose. With me in it, just a little bit less weight on the back tire. It's like 53.2. We were a lot closer to 50% before we made a bunch of chassis changes over the winter. When we first put the car together, it had an iron block in the front, and the car actually weighed close to 3,800 pounds.
Right.
We had everything we could possibly think of. We put it in the trunk to try to, offset the weight of that stupid thing. And then when we switched out to the billet block middle of last year, all of a sudden we ended up with a 50-50 weight bias, and I couldn't get the car to stop doing wheelies.
Yeah.
So
now I'll tell you what, it made for a season of awesome pictures. Just going to throw that out there.
it made for a season of oil pan and broke steering parts.
Right. Ouch. Yeah. Oh man. So, I mean, right away, I've done standalones. I do 40 different kinds of standalones. I've done exactly 2 diesels on standalones, and it was a long time ago. I'm curious. But Bewley tells me that you run one of the Bosch standalones, standalone controller. You are not reprogramming a Cummins or a factory Bosch style controller at all, correct?
No, yeah. Well, you can. Just you probably wouldn't be able to race X275 with it because they don't have the features. Not even half the features that I use on a daily basis to get this car to go on the track.
Did you have familiarity with that standalone before you put it on this combo?
Yeah, this is my second vehicle with the ECM. So when I had a 2014 Ram half-ton that I built up from a bone stock truck with 9,000 miles on it. We took it to the chassis shop, cut it in half, and made a Pro Street truck out of it.
Yep. I got it on the slideshow right now.
Yep. Nice little black truck. I actually sold it to a really good friend of mine. It's still racing today. Still has that same ECM in it. I decided when I built that truck from the ground up, what sold me on it at the time is when you use a factory ECU, not so much anymore because we figured more of it out, but when you use a factory ECU, you have to use a controller for your nitrous. You have to use a controller for your transmission. You have to use a controller for running multiple injection pumps. And you end up with all these third-party controllers and 15 USB cords and just way too many points of failure. And what sold me on the Bosch was having one computer that does everything.
Now, you actually have launch RPM limiters like a 2-step for the diesel, but since it's not spark ignition, how is it limiting RPM? Just it hits a certain fuel cap?
Yeah, it's just a rev limiter. I can do that in actually a factory ECU.
Awesome.
So it's just a rev limiter. It's nothing crazy. So
okay.
And actually the way the Bosch ECU does it, they have stage limiters and they have some other stuff built in. Either I'm too stupid to figure out how to work, or I never got any of the built-in features to work correctly. I don't speak fluent German, so the manuals are kind of useless to me.
Yep.
So what I ended up doing was setting a fault code. So whenever a fault code I don't even remember what I used for the launch control, but whenever this fault code is active, the launch, it looks at a specific rev limiter. So, and what I do is I put a ground on a certain pin, which triggers this fault code.
Trigger the fault.
And then I do an auto reset and 0 debounds. So as soon as I let off the button, it clears the code, and then I have my other limiter back. And that,
nice.
That seemed to work the by far the simplest.
Yeah. Outstanding. Which ECU is this from Bosch Motorsports?
It's a Bosch Motorsports MS-15-1. And then I use their DDU7 screen and logger, which, looks like your guys' race pack screens or something along those lines.
Right. That stuff is level up. That's expensive. That's an expensive ECU. Yes.
Yeah. It was actually designed and originally intended for the Audi road race program. Back, when they had diesels real hot and heavy. I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was like 2004 era.
Right. Le Mans stuff. And yeah.
Yep. And so those motors came out. They kicked ass for, I think, a year, maybe 2 years. And then they started throwing a ton of regulations at them. They ended up having to cut down to almost half the displacement that they started off at, and threw a whole bunch of rules at it. And the program just kind of went away because, when you end up a motor that's half the size of the gas motors, or however it ended up working out. It's no longer the competitive edge. So
right.
They couldn't
I would love to see. I would love to see the typical 12 valve guy's head explode when you try to explain to him that you're running an ECU from a Audi Le Mans car.
Yeah,
to drive your Cummins motor.
So,
yeah,
I'm in a group chat with a bunch of diesel guys. There's like 70 of us in there, and those guys still can't help but laugh at them because, I mean, if I turned my car into quote dinosaur power, where you pull lever, make power, there would be no chance in hell of ever going down a track or accomplishing anything besides smoky burnouts. It wouldn't do anything.
Yeah,
right.
So,
wow. And that's kind of what we were discussing too in our little chat. Like, how did you approach this car versus the typical, like a truck pulling thing? Because a lot of the stuff kind of, crosses over into the diesel drag race world. So hearing this is really cool, man.
Well, the your average sled puller kind of guy is a big mechanical motor, makes tons and tons of power. And what they do is they have a clutch type setup, and they basically free rev the motor up to 5,000, 6,000 RPM, and start riding that clutch out, and they pull the motor down from a free rev and load it that way.
Yeah,
and
so you get to load the motor up as the wheels start to turn, unlike in a drag race where you need before you let go of the bottom.
And that's where a lot of guys with mechanical motors and stuff fight themselves, because they're fixed timing, they're fixed. It'd be no different than you guys with a simple carburetor and a distributor that doesn't have an MSD box or anything like that. What you have is what you get, and you can't change it. And if it makes big power, it makes big power at whatever RPM it does, and there's nothing you can do to change it. And that's basically what a mechanical motor is, where take fuel injection that you guys are probably all used to, indirect injection, and take it even a step further and put that injector in the cylinder. The literally endless possibilities of power manipulation and whatever. I mean, I was on a Yellow Bullet thread a couple nights ago. I just finally signed up and made myself an account on there because I've always just been a lurker. I've never really had a reason to post on there. Not that anybody even know who the hell I was, but there was a post on there about my car. So I jumped in and answered a few questions. And one of the things I said is the first Common Rail Cummins was built, was released to the public in 2003. So in 2018, 15 years later, a Common Rail Cummins, or a descendant or a relative of it, whatever you want to call it. It's not, I don't have a whole lot of Cummins parts left in that. But qualifies for X275. So now fast forward that and apply that direct injection technology to, what GM is doing with the new LT4, LT. It looks like junk right now, and you guys are having a bunch of problems with it. But mark my words, you will figure it out. And that direct injected stuff, once you guys figure it out and get the fuel quantity through those injectors, like we've been able to do over the last couple of years as Common Rail Cummins, that is the way of the future, in my opinion.
I have a question on the diesel, on the injection timing. Can you use that to reduce power as a power reducer, or is it all strictly fuel quantity? What drives your injection timing goes?
So my injection timing is purely a byproduct of how long the injector is on for at what engine speed. That's it. So all I'm trying to do with injection timing is turn the injector off by a certain time post top dead center, so I don't spray fuel in an already lit environment out of the bowl. I have to
beyond
keep
what
all
you
the
can
fuel.
Use it for power. Yep.
You have to use it in the bowl. So, and a lot of guys think that are gas tuners or whatever their background is, that if I don't turn the timing up very much, it will be safe and it'll be good for my motor. Which in a Common Rail Cummins or any Common Rail application that uses direct injected, when you're discussing injection timing, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Wow.
So if you run a bunch of pulse width or a bunch of duration, injector on time, energizing time, whatever you want to call it, and you don't run the proper timing advance in order to shut that injection event off, you are literally chasing your piston as it goes down the stroke with a torch. So by that nature, the earlier you put the fuel in the cylinder, the better for your motor. You will just get to a point where it stops making power, and you're wasting fuel spraying the crown, which doesn't do anything, doesn't hurt anything. They'll start to rattle and they just quit making power. So, now if I want to snatch power away from my motor, I just snatch quantity. So I mean, I can leave the boost making whatever boost it's making. I can leave the nitrous stuff on, and if I want to nose the car over immediately, I can literally go from 500 cubes a stroke of fuel quantity in one stroke of the piston to 0 in the next stroke. And I mean, it's as fast and as instantaneous as you can imagine. It's as fast as you guys pulling ignition timing or cutting spark. It's the same concept.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah, this is like mind blowing.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff for me as a gas engine spark ignited background tuner here. Listen to this stuff. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, and I have no spark. Obviously, my fuel combusts itself. So to say that injection timing is not ignition timing, a little bit incorrect, because it still kind of is. Because I mean, it doesn't matter how much boost and how much nitrous I spray at this thing. If I don't give it any fuel, there's no fire to be had.
Correct.
So,
and also, if you don't spray it at the right time, right? Even at like low loads I mean, you could have it at the wrong time and have just really inefficient or no combustion, right?
Exactly, and that's where, excuse me, and that's where if you look at these mechanical motors when they start them up, they just bellow smoke, and they'll smoke gray and all this other stuff, because those mechanical motors have fixed pump timing. You know, the really hot rod guys will run, I don't even know, 30, 40, 50 degrees of timing advance. You know, so they will idle like crap, start like crap, you know, does basically nothing worthwhile until you get them in their sweet spot at 4,500 or 5,000 RPM. Then they work great. Where at idle, I idle my car at 0 degrees.
I heard it. So your motor actually starts and runs like a bone stalker. I heard it running around the pits.
It runs pretty good. It'll idle once I get the oil temperature up. It runs pretty good. I don't have I think a factory Cummins is in the 18-to-1. The older ones are even in the 19-to-1 compression range. We're 15.5. Right. So there is actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nitrous motors with more compression than me.
Yep.
So now take that into effect. When we had to sit in the staging lanes for 4 hours on Wednesday night, I had my car warm in the pits, but by the time I put it over there, my ice had melted, my motor cooled down to basically ambient air temperature. So I had 68-degree oil temperature. I think I had everybody in the staging lanes that had been waiting there for 4 hours with me giving me dirty looks, because I white smoked the entire state, 6 lanes of staging lanes out at
now, is there something you can mess with in the tuning if you wanted to, or is that a function of gigantic injectors and minimum open time?
Yeah, it's a function of gigantic injectors, low compression, and no temperature. So now, if I had ether in my back pocket, which I didn't bring with me, because I typically don't need it, but a little shot of ether would have cleared that up. But getting it to start and getting the combustion event to happen when there's no temperature, no compression, no nothing, and I don't have
it's all based on the air temp you can achieve in each stroke, in each cycle.
Exactly.
If it's going to light or not.
I don't have glow plugs or grid heater or any of that crap on the car, obviously. So if I've got cool air temperature to work with and no cylinder temperature, it won't start.
Right. I hear you. No, that's interesting. That's diesel combustion, man. There's some good reading on that in the Bosch Automotive Handbook, by the way.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of good. There's actually an SAE paper that discuss direct injection timing, and it's actually about peak efficiency and how to achieve the best mileage and all this other stuff. But if you read between the lines, efficiency equals free horsepower. So take it with a grain of salt, and read that SAE paper that's published out there as how do I make this thing make more horsepower.
It gets you thinking. It all boils back to efficiency.
Understand what it takes to make the best mileage, and now throw peak fuel quantity at it and apply the same principles, and voila, that's what I do down the track.
How much boost do you actually run on that thing?
That's a very common question. On the 88, so I have a single turbo, so one single stage of turbocharging. On the 88 this weekend, we saw 76 pounds.
76 pounds.
That was at 76 pounds of boost at 126,000 RPM shaft speed. No wastegates.
Do you look at back pressure at all? Do you know what your drive pressure ratio is?
Once upon a time I did, but we just kept melting sensors, so I quit putting them in. So. Same thing with the pyro. All the pyro told me that it was over 2,000 degrees, and I just kept melting. So
yep,
I just have pipe plugs and holes now. I don't care.
Now you just pay attention to how far out the end of the bullhorn the flame shoots.
Yeah,
that'll give you an idea of how hot it
is. Yeah, the flame out of the exhaust. I don't know if you guys have known, but that was something that was prevalent the first outing with the car. You know, we torched that cylinder head. We ruined a lot of parts. We did a lot of stupid shit. Honestly, that's all fixed up now. That was a product of those specific injectors that I had, and along with some other issues. But it looks really good for pictures, but that's expensive when it.
So Randall Burns is asking, why such low compression, or why do you lower the compression? I mean, my mechanical pump tractor puller buddies from up here in Iowa, I understand, you know, but is there something to being able to actually get more air and fuel charge and more space with lower compression, or or is it a detonation thing, or what?
No, there's no such thing as detonation. Diesel is controlled detonation.
Right.
So,
or pre-ignition or unstable combustion, whatever you want to call it, or
no, it basically boils down to efficiency at engine speed. So if you were to take your standard, you know, stock compression motor, with the stock cylinder head, you know, the stock cam design, all that stuff, they're really, really efficient. 1,500 to 3,000 RPM, and then they nose over and they're done. So the more, and there's a fine line, and we've been sticking around 15 to 15 and a half, and that seems very well. If you go much lower than that, it just seems to not be really efficient for anything as far as making power. It just makes them harder to start.
Right.
But so if you're going to build a torque setup, meaning, you know, smaller turbos, even multiple stages of turbocharging, something you want to be nice and crispy and drive good and all that stuff, you want to leave the compression in it. If you were trying to knock the torque out of it, not let it make torque. Like I don't want torque. Torque is my enemy trying to get this car to go on the track.
Right.
So, or trying to get it to 60 foot. Once I 60 foot, I can give it whatever and they'll take it. But, you know, we want to run the lower compression, big single turbos.
What's your RPM limitation? What drives an RPM limit? Once you're free from the pump limitations and stock computer limitations, and I mean, you obviously spin this thing a hell of a lot faster. Yeah. What drives your RPM choice and targets? Other than, I mean, when you build one of these motors.
So what limits us currently is injector size, and most importantly, what's limiting me from going any harder than what I have right now is, you know, like I said, that a GT55. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the compressor maps. The highest point on the 88 mil compressor map that they actually have plotted is 84,000 RPM. We're spinning 126. So
right.
Talk to the Garrett engineers.
No maps
you know,
there. Garrett engineer was like,
RPM are you doing with those things?
Yeah, they're like, please stop doing that and stop telling people what you're doing with it, please.
I don't want to warranty that.
Yeah, they're like, stop. You're drag racing a bomb. Stop doing that. So, I mean, they've been very, very, very resilient. So.
Do we need to try a large frame on it?
Yeah. So turbine flow, number one. Number two, injector. Like I said before, it's all a product of your timing is a product of your injector on time at wide open throttle or whatever you're currently at.
So you got to move more fuel with higher RPMs. You got to move more fuel in less amount of time.
Yes. Your window of opportunity gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So reference purposes.
How high can you spin that thing? I mean, where are you finding that you're at?
It noses over at 5,000 RPM. When I pull down the back half of the track, you know, going through the traps, we go through at about 5,300, and that's when shaft speed gets really dumb. So boost goes down, shaft speed goes up, and it just becomes an inefficient air pump at around 50, somewhere between 5 and 5,500.
Now, do you have nitrous on this combo currently?
Yes, we have 4 stages of dry nitrous.
Four stages of dry nitrous. Can you tell us when you stage those or how you bring those in?
Yeah, we heard the staging procedure was kind of interesting.
It's dry nitrous because we're direct injected. I have basically no such thing as rich. I basically have smoke out of tailpipe or no smoke out of tailpipe, and that's really as far as it means. It doesn't mean anything past that to me. So I'm not going to damage a piston. I'm not going to blow the straps off a spark plug. I have none of those issues to deal with. So I can kind of get carried away without a lot of the downsides that you guys have with nitrous tune-ups. So we basically put the fuel quantity into it that we need it to make the power that we're trying to make. We let the turbo do whatever it will do, and then we just spray the rest until we get all that fuel that we put in cleaned up. And that'll pretty much put us in the ballpark of what we're trying to accomplish. So I have 4 stages on the car. The first stage is a 048 dry shot that comes on whenever I put the car somewhere between 1/3 and half throttle. So in the burnout box, if you watch some videos of the car, you can hear it come on. So you'll see the smoke change. Yep, you'll see me high idle, which is 12 to 1500 RPM, and all I'm trying to do is put some heat in the motor, put some heat in the turbine. That way, when I smack it with the cold nitrous on its face, it'll actually react and run as opposed to backfire and make people dive off the grandstands and stuff. So
cool. Totally different tuning on these things, man. That carry on.
If I get a little carried away or overzealous with my tune-up or with me driving, if I'm not patient, if I don't let it have that 2 to 3 seconds of chill out, put some heat in the turbine, okay, now smack it, that's when the fireballs happen. And it usually shuts the car off and makes it a horror to start, and everybody's wondering what the hell's wrong. I'm like, just hold on, it'll start. Give me a second, So that comes on, that helps me spool, that helps me stage. Once that comes on, like specifically in staging, you'll watch the car come up against the converter. You'll see the smoke go kind of black. You'll see the car hesitate for just a second, and then I just floor it. I've got a boost reference fuel limiter. So as boost climbs, it gradually gives it more and more fuel. So when you see me on the line, once you see it go, pull back on me against the converter, and then you see it go clear, I'm holding it to the floor. There's the car's doing it all by itself right there, sitting with a 048 jet, just spraying a dry shot into the motor while I'm sitting there staging and everything. The next one we have on is we put a 068 jet is what we ended up with at the end of Duck's race. That comes on at 0 delay off the release of the trans brake. And so we try to leave with about 20 pounds of boost. And what that 068 jet does is basically kicks the car in the ass and makes that GT55 respond and get up and run, so it doesn't just bog.
Put some energy in the exhaust to drive that turbine.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that thing. So and then we from that point on we ride the G meter. The G meter comes up. It gets to a certain point. I don't want to really elaborate on the amount of G's and stuff. Sure. But it gets to a certain point that I have to limit it. Because if I let it get past a certain point,
so your controller can actually drive fuel or torque output by accelerometer input?
No, I use accelerometer. So we have a really tall first gear. I have a 160 first gear with a 273 rear gear.
Wow.
So I can actually go 100 miles an hour in first gear. So I've got a really long time. I've got a really tight converter. So I leave at 2,500 RPM. When I let off the brake, there is no flash stall. It just drives off. Which is,
you need that tight of a converter to be coupled with that torque at such a low RPM. So you got no choice.
Exactly. Well, we're using lockup as a fourth gear right now. I was actually looking at some data logs, thinking I could probably bring it in first gear. Just not sure. The only place I'd basically ever be able to use it would be at Duck's race. Because any other track that I've ever been to won't take that.
Right. That lockup is a violent thing, especially when you have so much more rotating mass. When you drop that thing into lockup, I mean, I bet it upsets the whole chassis. I've seen what it's doing on the Pro mods.
Yeah, and that's why I'm worried about locking it in first. There's some PWM lockup and some really cool stuff that I could potentially play with if I wanted to, but as of right now, we just drop the hammer and lock it in direct. It's 1,000 RPM drop, and it's actually it makes the G meter spike by 0.8 when I drop it.
And if the track, I can see why the tracks have a hard time holding that. Yeah.
If you call lockup before the 330, even if the car is settled, I mean, unless I'm at Duck's race, on a track where it's just radials going down over and over again, I feel like it would just kick the tires. Which now I use the converter as basically a big sponge, so I can throw a bunch of stuff at it and the track will absorb it. And basically the converter is a big sponge for per se. So So nitrous, we have the 048 dry, the 068 that comes on a 0 delay. As soon as the G meter noses over, I mean, within hundredths of the very first sign of that thing nosing over, so you're going to make fun of me. I use Digiset timers. I have 3 Digiset timers.
You have a $15,000 Bosch ECU and you're still using Digiset timers?
That is exactly what I hear.
This
all the
guy
time,
does not fail to deliver on the entertainment. That's outstanding. I mean, the pro stock cars are still running them. They got Holly EFI.
Proven.
Yeah,
but
they're proven.
It works every time and does the exact same thing every time.
I bet you Stevie Fast Car's got 3 or 4 Digisets on it.
I bet he probably wouldn't tell you anyways.
No.
So we backed that third kit up to come on right after the G meter noses over, and that's basically, and right when that happens is when I give it all the fuel, everything
everything it's got.
Yep. And then we've got another kit that I bring on 0.5 after that, which is what I use for mile per hour. So our jet spread that we had this weekend when we finished up was 48 all the time, 068 0 delay. We put we had a 0.99 or 099 right after the G meter noses over, and then we turn on a 136 right after that. So all in all, it's about pounds and a pass.
Jeez.
How many pounds is that?
Yeah.
5 pounds and a pass, but I think we only use about 4.5 to 4, right around 4.5 actually down the track.
That's not horrible, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we do use that 048 briefly in the burnout box, and of course during staging.
So how many seconds total is your nitrous on?
I guess it depends how long the other lane leaves me on the tree. So
right. Think about that. Hey, we got to introduce you to Mr. Cody Bruce. The Nano guys.
How you doing, sir?
They got your fix, man.
Hey, how are you? I was actually looking at Nano Systems today. So
we can
Cody's
help
your guy.
you out with that.
So we
stay on the chat after the call's over with. We'll have a good chat after the show's over. Yeah.
For consistency purposes, we take the burnout box at 860 pounds. Usually leaves us staging and sitting on the tree with both bulbs lit at 830. And on the log I was looking at today, at the end of the track, it went to 740 and then recovered to like 755 when I let off the throttle.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
And
that's probably why you're using so little nitrous, man. It's barely moving through them lines at that pressure.
Yeah. That's a 12-pound bottle from Nitrous Outlet with -8 lines to a little tree that has all the solenoids on it.
Wow.
What's the injection pump on there? I know you talked about it's not a P pump. It's
called a CP3.
Oh, it is the CP3. Okay.
So is it a dual CP3 car or?
Yep. It's a stock CP3. I believe is 8-liter stroke on the cam, and then it's just got 3 little buckets. I believe it's Common Rail Pump 3. I think is what it stands for, and the 3 being it's like a little 3-piston rotary engine, basically not a rotary, but like an airplane engine kind of thing. So the pumps that I use are pretty heavily modified by a company called S&S. They're really, it's actually where I got all the Bosch stuff from and all that stuff. They're big time nerds and all that stuff. So I've got
10 millimeters.
Two 12-millimeter stroke pumps.
Oh wow.
So a single CP3 will do about 600 horsepower to the tires. A single 12 mil pump will do right at 1,000, 1,100 to the tires. And 2 of them, we're showing 2,200 horse to the tires. So it's right on, and we're at 100% duty cycle on both pumps.
Wow.
I don't have any more fuel left. So
when you were talking earlier about the amount of fuel delivered, is that when you're tuning this, is that how are you commanding the volume?
Yeah. So everything in the Bosch ECU is based on millimeters. Yeah. Millimeters per stroke. So I'm currently, the way we have the fuel set up, I'm injecting 500 millimeters per stroke, which is ends up being 1,400 microseconds of injector at 220 MPa injection pressure. So like 34,000 PSI in the rail.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now, just to give guys some perspective, I own a Cummins, and it's actually got one of Ryan's tunes in it. And my tune is my truck only makes about 26,000.
Yep, 26,000 PSI. Actually, yours is 25.
Well, we got it turned up with the 6.7 sensor, and I think
it did put the better.
We run the 6.7 sensor with a 2750.
I should know that.
You should. You're the one that tuned it. I mean, come on.
So I assume since the exhaust is so hot, you're burning up thermocouples, from a pyro, that you're probably not running oxygen sensors or anything to monitor any kind of lambda or air fuel ratio, anything like that.
They do have those, and I can actually use those in the in the software, and there are tables that I can manipulate within the software using those. But from what I've been told, they are pretty much for use in a test cell only, and that extended use in any sort of actual automotive environment, they don't work very long. They stood up. So
can you talk to us about the block on that? It's a billet block. It's a completely dry motor, correct?
Yeah, it's made by LSM, which, correct me if I'm wrong, they make blocks for a lot of stuff, right? Not just Cummins.
Yes,
LSM.
They do. Yeah,
okay.
they make some billet blocks for a lot of people, for a lot of different models.
It's an LSM block. It is based on factory dimensions throughout. I mean, it'll bolt into your truck, John. It'll bolt right in. I mean, all your accessories will bolt on right into place. Alternator will go on. Starter goes on. Everything goes right where it's supposed to be. It's just made out of a chunk of aluminum. It's missing all the water ports, and it has none of the factory oil pump provisions. So you have to run an external oil pump. You have to, come up with some other way to cool it. Now that being said, diesels don't generate that much heat, so it's heating or cooling is not really an issue. But the block is it's got 4 bolt mains. It's got 2 bolt mains, and it's got what is it called, where the bolts come through the side?
Cross bolts.
Yeah, it's got those, and where the factory block does not. And it's obviously got a lot more material where a factory block fails. It's completely solid around the combustion chamber, where the factory block, likes to crack the combustion chamber into the cooling system. And I don't know if you've seen that video from Levon Miller and the Firepunk boys, but they had a deck plate block that was sleeved and basically as tricked out as you could make a factory block, and they end up just blowing the crank right out of the bottom of it. Or in that case, it blew the whole top of the motor off the crank and left the crank just spinning with connecting rods hooked to it, doing nothing.
Craziest dyno video on the internet. Almost.
Yeah, that thing went viral.
That definitely qualified as a catastrophic failure.
Oh yeah. And then they had that thing on display in D&J Precision's booth. ERI. It was pretty cool. I stood around it for about an hour, just drooling. You're like, wow, this is the most foobar I've ever seen an engine.
Yeah, you were just sitting there wishing it had been you that blew it up that good. I know how you.
Hell no, I don't have the destroy shit like that and smile about it.
Just to give somebody an idea too about the question came up about the actual size of the injectors, and oversized diesel injectors are usually sized on a percentage base over stock flow. Yeah. So how big are the injectors in your motor on that percentage basis?
So they call them 550s, 550%. Anybody who's a math guy, go cross-eyed at the thought of that, because it's impossible to have anything higher than 100, right? So it's kind of a stupid thing that we do. I don't know if you guys rate injectors that way or what, but so on a Bosch test stand, at whatever parameters they test them at, a stock 6.7 injector tests out at 1,000. Okay, I don't know 1,000 what, but these test out at 5,500. So that's where the 550% over is from. That's what they're marketed as. If you were to buy my injectors from S&S, you would call and say, hey, I want a set of 5530s like Ryan has. And, he would go to his little computer and drop some parts in a bin and go to work,
So you mentioned earlier you were out of fuel. Is that because you're pump limited or injector limited? Or
no, I'm out of fuel because of injector. I'm out of fuel because of pumps.
Now, don't they have 14 millimeters out now? Maybe, I don't know if S&S does or not, but I know Exergy, at least with some of the Duramax guys.
Fleece has some 13s. They wanted me to try. Excuse me, I got hiccups. Fleece has some 13s they wanted me to try. S&S has some 14s. I know Exergy has 14s as well. What I've been told is that the 14s were basically still needed to have some reliability testing done before we stuffed them in my car, if that makes sense. So
right.
something to do with living at the engine speeds that I'm constantly trying to push this thing through, as opposed to, the rest of the diesel world trying to make these things make torque still, which, like we talked about earlier, likes to push the crank out of the bottom of the block. So we're sticking with 12s for now. S&S wants me to take these pumps off that I have. They said they've got 15 to 20% more flow capability at RPM, which is where I'm actually above 5,000 RPM is where I'm limited on fuel, which that's where I'm trying to pull down the back half of the track and, get all that horsepower out so we can trap. So it's just a matter of taking the pumps off, sending them off, and basically not starting over from scratch, but having to get back to ground level and recalibrate those pumps back in.
Would it be really hard to double down on injectors per cylinder, like to double up injectors per cylinder?
I don't want to say impossible, but because we're direct injected, that'd be
tons and tons of work. Is the fuel rail part of the cylinder head, or is it external?
It's external. You can put the fuel rail wherever. And the problem with trying to put dual injectors in, like you mentioned, is the fact that our injector spray pattern, how many holes are in that injector, what angle it comes out at, is so incredibly crucial in relation to the design of the piston bowl, and getting that spray pattern perfectly in the bowl timed. So you could take something that works. I don't want to discuss what angle my injectors are, but you could take something that works really, really well, change the injector angle 2 degrees, and lose it. Won't come back, won't work right. Doesn't matter how much you tune it, you've lost it. You lost the magic.
Your injector angle is like Cam secrets to like.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So do you guys, it sounds like you guys have, the diesel world has kind of figured it out. You're kind of overcome what I've heard grumblings that the direct injection guys are dealing with, is that when you try to up the pressure and slam so much fuel in these things, you're basically sandblasting the internals almost.
Yeah, and that's so when the first
water jet cutting
on you.
Yeah.
So when the first common rail Cummins came out, those injectors are called CRYN 2, CRYN 2. I have no idea what that stands for. But those injectors didn't particularly like pressure very much. They would fail if you overpressured them too much. We can run them at about 190 MPa. I can run them at 200. Like say we're at one of these challenges we go to, Ultimate Challenge, Diesel Power Challenge, or whatever. I can stick those injectors to 200 MPa, but they're probably going to be junk afterwards. Where I run the CRYN 3.2s, which is, for lack of better terms, the injectors that came in a 6.7 Cummins. Those things, I don't know what they changed on the inside. That's not my specialty, but whatever they changed in there, you can basically slam absolutely as much pressure to them as you want to a certain point. And I figured out what that point is. It's about 280 MPa. When you do that to them, it rips the control rods in half. The good news is you can take those injectors apart, dump the control rods out on the table, put new ones in, and go back to racing.
Wow. Serviceable. Okay, that's kind of cool here.
Yeah, without fucking anything else up, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Ugh. I'm blown away by the diesel knowledge. That's crazy. I'm learning a ton tonight.
How long
control rods instead of push rods?
Yeah.
How long does your stock crank last in that? Are you still running a stock crank?
Yeah, it's a stock crank in my car. I don't know how to break a stock crank. I've had to replace it because I had some oiling issues when I very first put the dry sump setup in. Not the engine builder's fault, not the block's fault, not anything's fault. My fault for not paying more attention to oil pressure. We had to put some bearings in it and ended up wiping out the crank. Well, not wiping it out. I had to be at a race in 2 days. So I bought a crank off the shelf, a stock Cummins crank, and stuffed it in. And when the machinist came in on Monday, they took my crank and fixed it. Asked me if I wanted it back, but obviously I didn't need it. So I've heard of people.
We built a couple diesel engines when I was working down in Louisiana at the race shop down there, and a couple of those guys brought us $50,000 worth of parts, bone stock crank, nothing to it, and they didn't bat an eye. It was these things work great.
Yeah, they're big dumb animals. I don't really know how to break them. If I had to guess, if you made a motor make torque as opposed to letting it make horsepower, I mean, at the power level that I'm at with my car, say I had a a real tight set of compounds and I gave it all the fuel quantity at 2,000 RPM, where a Cummins will run and will make power there, that's probably how you'd break a crank. But I feel like you're going to break other stuff first.
So it's interesting. You notice that he's not spark ignited. In our world, it's easy to break a crank by having spark at the wrong time. Boom. You know, you got spark scatter or something weird on a coil pack engine where there's no mechanical distributor to kind of safeguard you from firing at 90 before top dead center. All that's got to do is happen once. That's what us gasser and electronic spark guys have to deal with. That's kind of interesting.
Now breaking
and over double the RPM too.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's just the RPM. I think it's actually the stuff that breaks cranks is banging on them at the wrong time, and it's hard to do that on a diesel, from what he's telling us.
But breaking cranks in a diesel world is not too terribly uncommon. For some reason, the Duramaxes, a completely bone stock truck, will break a crank, and no idea why.
LML Duramax.
But a Cummins, if you broke a crank on a Cummins, you, sir, deserve a medal, and I am impressed.
Wow.
So, what kind of horsepower and torque does your car actually make?
Any guesses?
I've had it on the chassis dyno. So completely blowing the tires off of my little 24-inch drum dyno jet. We showed 1370 with a bunch of fuel turned out of it, because with the way it goes on the track, I could not catch it with it was 1370 and 1750 to the tire. Now, when I haven't even tried to get on the track with that tune-up. That was 300 cubes, so 3/5 of the fuel quantity that I'm at right now. So
I was just going to say, I would guess you'd see more like 1800 at the wheel if you could hold it based on the weight and mile per hour.
Yeah, if I had a big roller like a Superflow or one of the older model dyno jets, I could probably show the amount of power that we can make, or even one of those dynos that bolt to your rear end that are pretty cool. I've seen on some robot videos and stuff. Yeah, those things are cool.
So if you had to guess, what do you think it's making?
Trap speed tells me 2,400 horse.
Yep, flywheel numbers, but yeah.
So 20.
And what kind of torque's it making at that?
So again, I can't capture it, so I can't see a power curve, but I can tell you that my boost noses over at 5,000 RPM. So
so in other words, you're going to be making just a little bit more torque than horsepower, because if you were 5,200 RPM, you'd be making the same.
Yeah, you do the math. Well, I was thinking more in the lines of peak torque. You know what I mean?
If I were to guess, a Cummins, a factory, not a factory, but on your normal hot rod Cummins will make twice the torque that it does horsepower. Now, when you start, and that's when you swing them in that 25 to 3,500 RPM range where a normal Cummins would run at. When you start singing them 5,000 RPM, that kind of goes out the window, and you end up with maybe not so much double, but maybe horsepower times 1.5 or horsepower times 1.6. Right. So if let's say I did one of these torture tests that I've seen done on dynos, where they'll wind them up to 5,000 RPM and then pull them down to like 2,000. Or let's say I short shifted the car and I let it have full fuel quantity at 2,500 RPM, where it was just making full power, and then I pulled it down. If I had to guess, a 2,400 horse, I would say somewhere in the range of 3,500 torque.
Yep. Yikes.
If I let it do that, I would probably get to buy a whole new motor, because it would come apart.
That's rough. So going down the track, what's your actual usable RPM limit?
Down the track, the rev limiter is 5,500.
Okay. So, but where are you shifting the thing? You stay in between 3 and 5, or are you 25 and 5?
Since we have no method of boost control, and I watch boost nose over pretty heavily at 5,000 RPM, I try to get everything done by 5. So, whatever sequence I have it happening in, I always try to get it done right at 5,000, which, the 1.2 and a 2.3 will pull down a couple hundred RPM. Lockup takes like 800 RPM out of it. And that's where, that 800 RPM drop on lockup is where that 0.8 increase on the G meter comes from, which is a crazy amount to happen at 450 feet down the track.
So you pretty much stay between 4,000 and 5,000 RPMs then?
Yeah, short answer, yes. 4 and 5 is where we're thinking.
Have you ever tried short shifting that thing and landing into a big bunch of torque on that thing?
Yes, but that wouldn't work very well unless we first gear, because the obviously the more engine speed we use, the more efficient our conversion becomes. So if I try to short shift it unlocked, I don't get nearly the RPM drop, and it really doesn't accomplish much.
Gotcha. Cool.
Have you tried flipping up your tow mirrors to see if you can get more out of it?
Weak. If I did, that 455 pass probably would have been at least a 35 with a mirror.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Don't take no shit off, Rod. Don't.
And I would have most definitely gotten laid as soon as I got done.
I'll tell you what, I don't know a lot about the diesels other than when they don't start, it's not the spark plugs. But the information that you've provided tonight and that you've shared with us
is outstanding.
Is absolutely amazing. I mean, I can't thank you enough because it really, really changes how a person thinks about it. Just having you share what you've shared.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, dude.
Even though I'm the one sharing the funny photos, I mean, I really do appreciate what you've shared.
You got any stuff you want to pitch, man? Have at it. We got some time, and we got technically we got as much time as you want to stick around. Actually, people listen. We got a bunch of people. We got 150 people listening tonight.
Nice.
But
well,
yeah,
I guess if I could say anything, I would say that don't look at the guys in diesel performance as. I mean, we are literally you guys 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, we're just because you guys have all the latest and latest, technology and all this stuff figured out, because there's 100 times more than 100 times more of you guys, of gas performance guys, than there are of diesel guys. Just it puts us a little behind the curve. I mean, 10 years ago, or 3 years ago, we were 20 years behind you guys. 2 years ago, we're 10 years, and now I feel like, I mean,
yeah.
When I first got the car, I brought it to lights out last year. I wasn't even sure if it was going to do a burn.
Some of this, I feel like you're well ahead of us. The diesel technology is pretty intense. The direct injection it's really impressive what you're pulling off there.
Easy. I mean, making power is easy. Making power and making it good on the track on a 275 tire is
impossible.
Not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the name of the game in 275 racing or any radial racing is power management.
I've got some really, really good people on our side, but at the same token, when we have something weird going on, there's nobody I can call that has experience in what we're doing. So
you mean you can't call Jegs or Summit and talk to one of their techs and they can be like, oh man, you just need a few more MPa, a fuel pressure,
just turn the old alternator up and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you what you're doing is awesome, dude. It's well beyond just hey, throw a governor spring kit and a fuel plate at it and turn it up and
stack a couple tuners on it and smoke out everybody in the neighborhood. No, that's not what we're trying to do.
Let me get a pinch of skull and let's roll. But
there is a couple more cars being built. I think I know at least 2 of them are coming to play an X275 with me, so they'll be on my team, or at least buddies of mine. So before we bring them out to the public, I'll do my absolute best to make sure their act is cleaned up and not portraying the smoke bellowing,
yours
turds.
blows clean enough for me, man. I was thoroughly impressed. It looks real clean.
That's the product of like hundreds of hours of making do that though. So if you guys get some opportunity and you want to check out diesel racing as we're doing it right now, check out Outlaw Diesel Super Series on Google. I don't know the exact website, but they've got a pretty full packed. I think there's 6 races this year. There's a National Hot Rod Diesel Association that's more kind of focused on the stuff out west. The Outlaw Diesel Super Series stuff is in the east. I'm running that full series with my car, along with any X275 race I can get, and of course, Dux races. So if you guys ever want to go check out a diesel race and see what we're really about, go check one of those out. But chances are you'll see me there. I appreciate that you guys are letting us come play in your arena with, everybody I've talked to has got open arms. The only haters seem to be on the internet. So,
dude, I think everybody, a lot of people, myself included, were big fans of what you were doing. It's super cool to see that out there.
Same here. It's ballsy and it's you're doing it. You're succeeding.
But after this interview, like even more so, man, it's super cool to know what's going on behind the scenes isn't what you normally see in the performance diesel industry. It's awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of people just think we're just gonna Just turn the old fuel screw up and throw some power at it.
That's what I did on my Yanmar out in the yard.
Yeah, exactly.
It worked.
Doesn't work here.
No. Oh.
If anybody has any questions for me or any other, I'm an open book when it comes to the car. I'm not going to tell you how to do everything I'm doing, but if you guys got questions you want to know about the car, Ryan at hardwayperformance.com. Hit me up on Facebook.
Check him out. Ryan at hardwayperformance.com. Outstanding. Okay.
And I'd be happy to.
I can't imagine
about whatever I got. Whatever you got.
I want to know what fuel pump's on the car as well. I'd be curious.
Yeah, like the low pressure fuel pump.
Yeah. What do you?
It is the fuel pump portion of an Aviad four pump oil pump setup. So.
Yep. The backstage of a dry sump setup or whatever.
Yep. Nothing too crazy.
So
I run it through a mechanical regulator. I feed the injection pumps 40 pounds of pressure at all times, and I don't have to look at it. It just works and does stuff. It's fine.
So there's no filters hanging underneath the car, like
I do have a filter. So I was using like a Dash 10, one of your standard like Summit Racing Jegs, whatever the hell you want to call it, like canister type filters. And what I realized on those was they do not flow sufficient volume, especially when you need to limit it down to the 10 microns that we need our fuel filtered at, so we don't ruin our injectors. So I have basically a semi type screw on fuel filter that looks kind of like a giant oil filter, sitting right next to my motor underneath the car or underneath the hood.
So do you run any cat filters or anything of that nature below the 10 micron, or is 10 micron where you run?
No, just a 10 micron's fine. Some people get really carried away with their daily drivers and put 3 micron on it, but I mean 10 micron is a really small piece.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out managing the torque, because with the tire that you're on and the torque curve, which has to be non-existent, trying to manage that has to be, to me, the most impressive part of everything.
Converter has to be critical on that.
Converter is crazy tight, and I will tell you this: we come off the trans brake, the motor goes straight to 500 cubes. We have 2 kits blazing by that point. I know exactly what RPM, based on my converter, the G meter is going to try to climb past that critical no spot, and exactly on that RPM, actually 100 RPM before that RPM, I snatched 50 cubes out of it. 50. So I go to 450 grams or cubes, whatever it is, millimeters cubed, out of it. And
that's your term for fuel quantity that's being consumed, which is directly proportional to torque.
Yeah. Sorry, that's not everybody knows what that means, so I was trying to explain it. But so I snatched 50 cubes out of it. As soon as I get past that critical hump and I get that G meter to nose over, I give it right back to it and turn 2 kits on. So
and let it eat. That's awesome.
Doing to make it go on track.
Groovy.
Yeah, it's just absolutely impressive as shit.
Yeah, I know, right?
We also, for those of you guys with Facebook, I did like a 2-hour. I didn't mean to make it 2 hours. I did a 2-hour Q&A on my personal Facebook last night. So look me up, Ryan Milliken. If you got 2 hours to spare and you're bored, check that thing out.
Check out Ryan Milliken on Facebook, answering questions. That's outstanding. Yep.
Yeah, I think I covered every question and a few of them a couple times in there. So if you got any more questions on the car, just go check that out. I think I covered everything on there.
Hit them up, spend some money with them, buy something. Cool.
There you go. There you go.
Dude,
do that.
Stick around. I know we got a couple guys that want to talk to you offline, so stick around for we call it the after hours segment. It's
no problem.
It's not live show, but it's generally more entertaining. So, all right. Well, I'll put you guys on mute for a minute. I'm going to switch over here to the outro. And I hope everybody liked the video stuff we added tonight. Huge thanks to John Keesey and Ryan Milliken, both kind of X275 superheroes from this last weekend's race at South Georgia Motorsports Park, the Ducks event, Lights Out 9. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the new video stuff we're doing. If you listen on YouTube, good to see all you guys listen on YouTube tonight, actually. If you got some interest in any of the classes we've got upcoming, they're filling up fast. Starting to add events. We'll be doing the Northern and Midwest and the Northeast middle and late summer. So look for July and August and September dates for you guys that are asking. But in the meantime, stick around and listen to what we've got planned for classes here in the next couple of months. And we will talk to the rest of you guys soon. Everybody peace out and have a good week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. The guys from RealTuners, we have 2-day courses in dyno shops across the country. Our next class will be in Mount Airy, North Carolina, February 24th and 25th at Tick Performance for a Holly-specific class. We have 5 seats left for this one. Sign up soon. For you Midwest people, we have seats available at our class in Northwest Arkansas, March 10th and 11th at Jerry's Performance in Magazine. Plenty of seats left for this one. It's a good opportunity to make a spring class that still has open seats. Consider traveling if you have to. We also have seats available at our Dallas-Fort Worth class, March 24th and 25th. April classes, we will have a GM HP Tuners Gen 3 and 4 specific 2-day class at Shore Tuning in Danville, Kentucky on the 7th and 8th of April, and advanced standalone tuning on the 28th and 29th, also at Shore Tuning. April 21st classes at 417 Motorsports are sold out. May 12th and 13th will be in Detroit, Michigan. May 26th and 27th will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. June 9th and 10th is another Holly-specific class at 417 Motorsports in Springfield, Missouri. Register for all of these at RealTuners.com. Click on RealTuners Live Classes. If you'd like to bring 2 or more people, talk to us about group discounts. For more info or to make a reservation, go to RealTuners.com or message us at RealTuners LLC on Facebook. Learn how to tune your own standalone EFI systems like Holly, Fuel Tech, Megasquirt, Fast, and others on a chassis dyno. Includes topics such as traction control, individual cylinder tuning on a budget, and power adders, all designed to help you get your project running successfully in a course taught by people who actually do this stuff for a living.